Welcome to my channel. My name's Sam and this is Frugalissima, where I talk about dressmaking, and today I'm going to talk about the Great British Sewing Bee Series 6 Episode 9. And this week it was Movies Week. So yeah, it was a tense one this week, I would say. If anybody got to watch it, it was all a bit fraught. But first of all, I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone who's subscribed, and if you would like to subscribe to my channel, there's a link below, and if you hit the little subscription bell, you'll get to know whenever I put a new video up. I'm doing this series of videos for the Great British Sewing Bee, which is it's quite time consuming because I'm doing a blog post that accompanies it as well. Going forward, I'm hoping to do them a bit more frequently, probably twice a week. But just at the moment it's just once a week whenever I can get them up. Each week I will be looking at patterns that I own and see if I can find any patterns that the contestants used as well. If I can't find patterns, maybe a tutorial or something like that. So for the first challenge, they had to make a halter neck dress similar to the one that Marilyn Monroe wore in the 7-year hitch. And they had 4.5 hours to make that. So the twist to this challenge was that the contestants had to use fabrics that had already been chosen for them. Part of it had been pre-pleated, and then the top part of it was just plain. There are companies that do this for you, and I will, in my blog post, I will put a link to a company called, I think they're called Cement, in London, and it's not actually as expensive as you would have thought. I think it costs something like £7 a metre or something like that to have it done. But given that most of us don't live in or near London, that's probably not the best option. I've looked at Plissé. Now the problem with Plissé is you don't particularly want the pleats across the bodice of the dress. So getting something to match the top and the bottom is going to be a bit of a tricky business. So in the book, in the Great British Sewing Bee Sustainable Style, there is a pattern actually for once, the actual pattern that they used in the book. So that's the dress that's in the Sustainable Style book, and as you can see, the actual skirt of it isn't pleated, and they have used I think that's a bamboo silk that they've used for that particular one. The suggestions that they've put in the book for a bamboo silk, a viscose or a silk or a rayon, something with plenty of drape really. I made a dress from Fabworks, which is a silk acetate and polyamide, and I think that would be perfect for it. It's just a very soft crepe, and that would be perfect for it, but obviously you wouldn't have the pleats unless you sent it to one of these companies to have it pleated. I've not managed to find a free alternate pattern, but I've looked in my own pattern stash and I found this Butterick 5209. I've tried that one before, made the mistake of buying the wrong size, and I abandoned that one. And this is a nice alternate shape as well. That's a bit Butterick 5214. So these are two that I have in my stash, and I'll insert a picture of, there's one called the Marilyn dress, and I think that's a folklore one. That's quite a nice one. What the contestants made, I must admit I was a little bit disappointed, not with the contestants, but with the show asking them to make a full circle skirt that clearly needed to be hung 24 hours in order for it to drop on the bias, because everybody's, even the one that got hemmed, everybody's looked really bad, and I would think that that would put anybody who's people that watch this, they're not just people that sew. I would imagine that put people off if they think that that's going to be the best result. The best sewers in the country can come up with is a hem that's 2 or 3 inches higher at one side than the other. And Patrick did make an aside to it, saying that yes, there should have been hung. But I think if I'd have been a contestant, I'd have been really upset by it being put up for that, really. because they did need hanging, unless that was part of the test, in that they should have cut the skirt first and let it hang for the 4 hours before they put it all together. Maybe that was part of the test, and they all failed with that one. I don't know. They were given the fabrics to choose, several colours of fabrics to choose from. So Liz went for a red in the absence of black. Claire went for a pale blue in the absence of it being perfectly Marilyn Monroe. That was the closest. And I think Nicole went for a bright yellow. I think Matt went for blue. Yeah, like a royal cobalt blue. And yeah, they really did struggle with this one. It's quite a simple dress really, and it wasn't to fit a model, it was to fit the mannequins, so they're all cut in the same size, and the judges did sort of say that this is just purely judging the sewing and how they handle the fabric, as opposed to hiding behind some sort of wacky fabric choice or something like that, which I did think was a good idea, and I think I might have mentioned suggesting that in another video. So yes, we had Claire. She got most of hers done, I think, except the hem. In fact, none of them finished the hem apart from Matt. Matt was the only one to finish the entire dress. He got the hook and bars on the back, the zip in, and hemmed it as well. It was a tough one, was that, for everybody. I think they all struggled. So we did see quite a few people made comments on social media afterwards about stay stitching both neckline here and under the arms there to stop, because this is cut on the bias on the neck, and obviously under the arms it's a really deep cut right into the waistband, and yeah, the actual bodice of that on the show, you could see that completely interfaced that. It wasn't shown very well, and I think a few people might have missed it, but you could see on one shot that whole entire bodice had actually been completely interfaced. And it doesn't mention that in the book, actually. It does tell you to stay stitch, but it doesn't tell you to interface it. So it'd be interesting to see just how much difference that does make to the stability of that neckline, because they do have a tendency to gape if you don't stabilise it in some way or form. Liz had a bit of a disaster with the zip, and hers didn't meet. Well, she cut the top off, but the bit that you saw that was cut off wasn't enough to the bit that was missing. Her zip didn't go as far as her waistband; it just went to the top of the skirt. So maybe she just misread the instructions. I don't know. And Nicole had a even bigger disaster, in my opinion, in that she completely forgot to. They called it bagging out, but essentially you're just sewing it together and pulling it through. I associate bagging out with when you're lining a jacket, and it's a much more complicated or complex thing to do. Whereas you're sewing the neckline, where the arm is, and the top, and then you just pull it through. So it's not particularly complicated. But she completely missed doing that, and I've no idea how. And ran out of time to finish it. She got a zip in, I think, but she didn't hem, and I don't think she got her hook and eyes in neither. So it really did get them a bit foxed, did that. Now, if you're going to do something like this and work with a pleaser, I don't think I'd hem it. I've got a skirt to show you here that is a pleaser. Now, that they didn't use a pleaser, but because the actual pleats were quite a lot wider. This is a very narrow pleat. I don't know if you can actually see that, but if you can see that hem there, and I'm not lazy in the sense that I will put a hem in if it will go in, but only if it's going to look right. And I think if you try to hem something like that, you're just going to cause bulk. and I think Nicole chose a fabric for the wrap skirt in the first episode, and she tried to either hem it or do something down the side, and it just looked a mess because it just resists that sort of treatment, really. I think they really missed out on quite a few learning points, really, where they not the contestants, the show as a whole missed out on a few learning points on where they could sort of tell viewers what they should have done, or some techniques that would help anybody else wanting to make something like that. So yeah, they all struggled. I remember Liz saying that the fabric was really slippery. Nicole struggled cutting the fabric out in that it grew. So things like that, they could just sort of suggest, well, if you use the walking foot when you was sewing it, that would feed the fabrics through a lot more evenly. If you cut it out and use either a spray starch on particularly slippy fabrics, that would stop it from growing, or you can use a tracing paper to cut out as well. Just things like that, and then the stay stitching, and just making more of an issue of where they're stabilising and things like that. I know it's probably not very entertaining for people. I think if you're a bit of a sewing geek and you're watching it and you think, oh, they didn't do that or whatever, but quite a lot of the techniques were there. It's been cut out in editing, I think, a lot of it. So yeah, so Matt won that one because he was the only one to finish, and that was simple as that. So, a lot of people commented that a lot of them were bagging out here, and I'll get onto that a bit later on. But I think that's probably the design of the pattern. I think that's just a problem with the pattern. I don't know. So Liz came fourth with her zip disaster. Claire came second, and Nicole came third. And Matt, came first. For the transformation round, the contestants had 90 minutes to transform charity shop and junkyard scrap into a sci-fi inspired garment, I suppose. So they had all sorts of things like old CDs and vacuum hose, and there was a mobile phone and a laptop and all sorts of things like that on the junkyard bit, and then there was some garments as well that they could use, and I think they were only allowed to use up to three garments. So Matt chose some red PVC. It wasn't clear what that had been, and went for something Barbarella styled, which was just essentially a very, very short red mini dress with like a very deep armhole V there. And I think he completely forgot to use anything from the junkyard until the last minute, and then put 3 rings that had beads on. No idea what they were. They were just down the back. I think he just completely panicked and realised that he'd forgotten to use it. Not sure what Nicole was going for. She started off with a wetsuit and then just kept building on it. She found some like silver, almost like bubble wrap, that she was attaching on the sleeves. I can't even describe it. It looked like some strange insect or something. I don't know what it was supposed to be. I think Nicole was probably the one to use the most different parts of scrap as opposed to fabric. But yeah, I'm not sure what that was supposed to be. And Liz started off with what looked like a blue Lorex leotard with a turtleneck, and then found a leather skirt that had studs in it, and used that studded part as epaulettes, and then found an old shower curtain, wrap that round the waist as some sort of skirt, and then found a piece of circuit board and put that on, and then this random zip across there. I think that she was referencing Mad Wax, which apparently isn't sci-fi, but I mean, I'd have been absolutely honestly, I would have been absolutely useless at this. I don't do sci-fi, and I don't, so I wouldn't have known any of the references really. So Claire was a standout winner, I think, on this one. She found a gold Lurex dress and used the top half of it, and then I think she cut up the bottom half of it and remade the skirt. She found some vacuum hose that had been painted copper. Don't know why. I don't know if it were left over from props from something else, and attached that all around the hem of the skirt, and then I think she was cutting into it as well, so she cut into it and attached it and then sewed it onto the skirt, so there was a little bit of sewing in it but not much, and then also put the hose around the armholes, and then decided to do some sort of skirt with a bit of this dress inserted into it because she decided it was too short. Yeah, so so she came first with that one. Liz came fourth, and Matt third, and Nicole came second on that one. I've said before and I'll say it again, I would much rather see something sensible being upcycled. They said they wanted something that they'd see on the catwalk, and they did reference the Alexander McQueen Atlantis collection. I don't think you would have seen any of that on the catwalk. Not in 90. It's not possible in 90 minutes. Just do something nice and do something well and stop messing about. Onto the made to measure round. So that was a 5.5 hour round, and it was flapper dresses. I thought that was a strange choice really for made to measure, and simply because my experience of flapper dresses is that they're quite unfitted. The whole point of that period of dress was to take away the femininity of dresses, and they were much more unstructured. But as Esme quite rightly pointed out, it's quite possible to make them too small, as you will find out. The big test of that one was more the use of embellishments and tricky fabrics, I think. You know, you've got your silks, you've got your beads, you've got feathers, you had all sorts of different fabrics which are quite difficult to handle. I really do think Matt took a bit of an easy option there. He used a pattern from Pattern Recall, and they did actually show that on the show quite a few times. If you have a look, I'm going to insert a picture of the picture. If you have a look at that pattern, there's a really nice asymmetrical flounce coming from the hip to below the hem on that, which he completely took out. So essentially all he had was a shift dress with another sort of dress, another dress over the top. A lot of these 20s dresses are 2 layers, and I think they might have specified at least 2 layers because everybody had at least 2 layers with them. So essentially what you've usually got is something sort of embellished over the top of something like an underskirt or an underslip that covers your modesty essentially. So his underslip was a really nice blue, and he'd found this fabric from New York, which I've not been able to find at all. Mood was the most logical place to go there, and I couldn't find it, and I couldn't find anything similar, and it was beautiful. The contestants do have a budget for this. I'm not sure what it is. I don't know if it's like £200 or something. So you've got to take that into consideration as well. So yeah, he just went. It omitted the flounce. So essentially, it was just a shift dress, or an underskirt, if you like, a slip dress with a shift dress over the top, and the embellished fabric, the one that went over the top, that was already finished. So there was no hem to do on there. Esme, he must have finished the binding on the V of his dress, because Esme pointed out that it not got it joined there, so it was split, so there was like a weak point there. And instead of the flounce, then he did a sash. Now, I didn't just tie a piece of material around the waist. I did notice that it got some embellishment from the dress onto the tie, so he'd done a little bit of work there. But compared to the work that Claire and Nicole and Liz have been putting in, I think he really did go for an easy option there. Perhaps having won the first round, he decided to rest on his laurels a little bit. I don't know, because he in the past has has drafted his own pattern, so whether he thought that, well, that was too simple to draft, or just decided to buy a pattern. A lot of these patterns are available to download as PDFs, so they're not particularly expensive. They're quite easy to, but they're quite easy to draft yourself as well, I would imagine. The Closet Historian on YouTube goes through how to draft or how to make a 1 hour shift dress. And they're just, like she says, they're quite simple geometric shapes. They're quite easy to draft yourself. Claire said that she may have bitten off more than she could chew because she went for 3 layers. She had an underlayer, and then she had a layer that had handkerchief hem, and then she had a layer that was made like it was all Art Deco beads over the top. An 8-point handkerchief hem. So she was pin hemming the rectangles that formed the handkerchief hem, and only had time, I think, to complete 4 of them. I'm not 100% sure whether she only attached 4 of them or only actually hemmed 4 of them and put all 8 onto the bottom of the dress. She was using a green georgette, and then this beautiful Art Deco inspired beaded fabric over the top, and it would have looked fantastic had she not got it too tight over the model's hips, because it was kind of making it all push up like that, so it just didn't look right over sort of the chest area really. So I think she did bite off more than she could chew really. She'd have been better off doing 2 layers and doing them well. But you've got to push yourself on it. It's a competition, isn't it? You've got to push yourself, and Nicole is a queen of pushing herself. I think she really did struggle. She really struggled making the slip dress underneath, and she spent a long time trying to do the bias binding, trying to get it right. You saw her picking bias binding out. I would never unpick, not on silk, unpick bias binding. Oh no. No. So Nicole made a black V-neck silk slip with, and then the overlay was gold scalloped sequins, which I've not been able to find anywhere, and then feathers on the bottom. I'm not sure what she did in the end to finish that, but she didn't. She struggled. She really did struggle with the timing issues. She just had to finish. She just had to adjust her plans in order to get something on the model at the end of it. She was in danger of not actually finishing hers. In true Liz style, she went for cobwebs, and I'm not sure what pattern she used. Hers was a crossover, so again, it's slightly more complex, trying to get that crossover right. The fabric looked quite effective actually. So her slip was like a silver satin or silk, and at the back was a yoke with fringing on. I think it was beaded fringing actually, and she was the only one actually to use fringing. I do remember the judges saying they were expecting to see quite a lot of fringing, so maybe it wasn't such a big thing that everybody thinks it was. The other thing about 1920s dresses is that I think they were below the knees as well. You see a lot of people doing fancy dress, and they are usually quite short, but that wouldn't really be historically correct, I don't think. I think they were a little bit more demure than that. The patterns that I found for Liz, there's a flapper dress by Bright Young Things, which had an asymmetrical flounce on. Again, I think she may have used that, but just not put the asymmetrical part on it. I think a lot of them did keep it relatively simple, really, apart from poor Claire. We did see Liz using a hammer as well to hammer out the sequins within her seam lines. So she knew that she had to take out the sequins or the beads or whatever. Whereas Matt, despite being advised to do that, decided to keep his in. I don't know if he just couldn't be bothered, I don't know. And it just resulted in a lumpy seam line. It wasn't a mess. I mean, it did look nice. So the result was that they don't actually judge the last round. But I think overall, the general consensus and the judges were saying that Liz was in contention for Garment of the Week along with Claire's transformation. So in the end, Claire's transformation won, and Liz went home, which was a huge shock for everybody, when considering she was in contention for Garment of the Week, and she did probably the best job out of any of them with the garment that she produced in the Made to Measure, in that it was finished, it fit, and it looked nice. I think, you know, some of them were finished but had issues, like Matt's seams, and his underskirt was showing a bit, and he had this bit of bias binding that had gone. Claire's didn't fit. It's a Made to Measure, so hers didn't fit, and Nicole just added issue after issue. I think she did say at one point that she'd used up like three most difficult fabrics known to mankind. So, but you know, she does really push herself, does Nicole, and I think she's been lucky to stay in. So it was a shame to see Liz go, particularly when she'd done so well in the last round, and obviously through all the editing and what have you, you don't see what everybody else, what the judges are seeing. So it is really difficult to call it. Yeah, that was the result. And if anybody's interested in the dungarees that Claire was wearing, because I know a few people have asked on social media, I think they were the 1940s overalls by Wearing History. There's a very similar pair by Folkwear as well, called Rosa the Riveter. I can't see any difference in them at all. Maybe the pockets might be patch pockets on one and not on the other or something, but they're very similar. So on to my challenge. So it was a tough one, was this. The halter neck dress is not really my cup of tea, and it's very low and absolutely no back in it. But given that I've no need of an upcycled of an upcycled dress made out of bits of hosepipe and or a flapper dress, although I do love the style, I absolutely love the style, and had this been aired at Christmas and we were going into New Year for fancy dress, I'd have been much more tempted to do a flapper dress. But I am trying to make it out of patterns and fabric that I already own, and I've not got any fabric that would have remotely made a flapper dress at the moment. So I thought I'd have a go at the halter neck dress against my better judgment. And I say that because I talked myself into it, because I thought, well, it doesn't have to be a dressy dress. It could be just a nice summer dress. But I do have a bit of an aversion of having too much flesh on show. I'm a bit modest like that. I thought if I just have a go with rather than cutting the whole thing out, I'll have a go with the bodice and see what it looks like. So that's what I did. I found this old lining fabric that I have got meters and meters of it. So if I wanted to make the full dress, if it had turned out okay, I could have done. It is a bit bonkers, so I'll show you a little bit of it there. And looking, I do have trouble with this book. Looking at the size chart on here, I have a bust of 37 inch, which would put me between the 12 and 14 in this book. The 12 is a 36.5 inch, the 14 is 38.5. So ideally I should probably have gone for the 12, but my waist was a 16, so my waist is spot on a 16, 33 inches. And it doesn't give you the finished measurements in here again. All it does is a front skirt length, completely useless, back skirt length, waist and a hem width. I mean, yes, you need it probably for cutting it out in your fabric, but not much use when you're trying to fit yourself. So my waist of a 33 that falls in at 16 should have given me a 34.25 inch waist, and obviously no bust measurements on there, so I had to just sort of take a blind guess. So I cut a 14 bust and a waist of 16, and I can't try it on. I honestly can't. I'm not going to put this on, try it on. but believe me when I say, in fact what I'll do is I'll bob it over my head like this so you can see. So I've made a few alterations to it since, but if I show you there, that is how much gapage I've got now after I've made amendments to it and brought this bodice part down this much from the waist, so that should run flush with that waistband there. So I've brought that down a good, what would you say that was, 1.5 inches. I pinched out at the sides here, I pinched out just short of an inch, like, so that was like 2 inches, if you know what I mean. So each side it was 2 inches, almost 2 inches too big. And even if I'd have made the smallest of that on that pattern, it would have still been too big. And you know, I'm a woman of a certain age and things have gone a little bit south, and but I tried it on with a bra, I tried it on without a bra, and that was never going to look right. It was just never ever going to look right on me. So I've abandoned that. I'm not going any further with that. I've wasted nothing apart from 2 hours of my time, and that's the other thing. This did only take 2 hours, and this I've done the stay stitching. I've put on. I haven't interfaced all the lining. I didn't really want to waste a lot of interfacing, but I've interfaced all down this seam here. Stay stitched it and I've understitched it, and that actually that's quite stable actually. That is quite stable. That one I just stay stitched it, and I don't think it tells you to do that in the book either, but I did stay stitch it, and it's not a question of the fabrics stretched out, it's a question of that particular area is too big on mine. So it may be in drafted for somebody with a fuller bust, or I don't know, but you would definitely have a lot of side boob, I think, and just so much flesh on show on the back. It comes right down there. It's just not modest enough for me, I'm afraid. So call me old-fashioned. So that's a fail. I'm not bothered. It's absolutely fine. I would have loved to have been able to have a go, but no, I can't wear that. So yes, we're down to the last 3 contestants. It's the finals week next week. So let me know below who you think's going to win. We've got Claire, Matt and Nicole going into the finals. They've not given a theme, so I suppose it'll be something fancy for the last one. And that's the end of the series. That's a 10 shows. I'm going to do on a Wednesday night now. So yes, please like and subscribe, and I will be back next week with a review of the finals, and hopefully in the future I will bring you some more tips and tricks and money saving ideas. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Bye.